Με το αριστερό. Γεια σας. Γεια σας. Ευχαριστώ πάρα πολύ που είστε εδώ. Δεν σας βλέπω βέβαια γιατί πέφτει το φως. So I'll present my work in English. Thank you very much, Vasilis. Thank you, ESO organization. So geographies of light between nature and architecture. Working as a photographer for the past 35 years. I'm sorry to say, but I'm from Tel Aviv. I have to say that. And I'm originally from Algeria, Egypt, Israel, Turkey, Greece, and partially France. So my work somehow has been very much influenced from my origins, which is very much related also. It's between the sea and the desert. I'm always interested for landscapes of ancient landscapes, as well as contemporary. Since my early years as a student of photography undergrad, I studied first in Athens. I finished my undergrad in TEI Athens, but then I moved to London. But in between, I worked in archaeology as a specialist in under-earth graves, spending almost 12 years or more in under-earth photo shoots with the use of invisible light, trying to understand and collaborating with scientists about the techniques of ancient painting. My first connection to photography of architecture happened in 1995, end of 1995, when I was mostly stationed in the north of Greece and between London and everywhere around Istanbul, etc. Then I met George Simeoforidis. Some of you know him, some of you don't know him. An astonishing personality. I'm very thankful to him. Unfortunately, he's not with us in this world. So he was the one to invite me to photograph some architectural works, modernist. I didn't want to get the job, but then I said, sure, after his persistence with night calls, etc., crazy guy. And the first project I photographed was Zenetos. So as a photographer of landscapes and archaeology, I had no idea actually how to photograph modernist or contemporary. It doesn't matter for me. It didn't matter for me at that time. So what I did when I arrived to this site was to climb, to go to the top of the hill and photograph the rock formations. And when I arrived to George, I said, look, that's it. And he said, what is this exactly? He started laughing. He said, this is not architecture. I said, well, I photographed the rocks. So, and that's how I started photographing architecture, but not without knowing what I'm photographing, but focusing on the landscape. That was a good start, I can tell. So, in the meantime, originally coming from the desert, all my grandparents, Egypt, Algeria, myself, Tel Aviv, yet Istanbul as well, which is not a desert, of course. I've been always attracted to deserted landscapes across the world, especially the way with which desert landscapes create formations that could refer to remains of ancient buildings or even contemporary, as in this case in Atacama Desert in Chile, where I've been there over 30 times, the driest desert in the world. Also, I've crossed the world around examining, because my work is research-based. I'm photographing with a large format camera and the use of film. So don't imagine something like, okay, let's go, you know, like 5-minute stuff. It can take days, it can take years that I may be photographing something, you know. So I photographed between ice deserts and hot deserts all across the world. So one important aspect when someone sees my camera, which is quite bulky because it's the large format camera, some of you have worked with me and I've worked with you, during my early years as an architectural photographer, but it's this idea of how do you engage your body in order to make the photography. As with musicians, a cello player, for example, you know, it's how your instrument becomes part of your body. So it's the harshness of the bulkiness being exposed in extreme weather conditions, either below zero or in heat waves, etc. So what has played a very important role throughout my career, even up to date, being a photographer for the last 38 years, it's the fact that I have been a professional runner. I was a runner since my very early years, and my training location was the Kalimarmaro. Yeah, Athenians, you know the Kalimarmaro. And by the way, now I have 2 exhibitions in Paris, in UNESCO right now, it's happening, and in a gallery, and next month in OECD, and the Greek embassy to Paris about the Kalimarmaro and ancient Olympia. So that was a small parenthesis. But what has helped me greatly is this physicality and the fact that you engage your body, keeping the fitness on, you know, and the fact that you can cross miles around the world, mostly by myself. Some photos, snapshots from the Blue Mountains in Australia, from crossing on foot from Chile to Argentina, etc. So a major turning point in my photography and my contribution in architectural photography internationally, it all started from the fact that I managed to get the Fulbright grant and get into Columbia University thanks to a man called Bernard Tchoumi. You are familiar with his work through the New Acropolis Museum. He was the dean of Columbia University for 16 years. Thanks to him and Yanis Eskos, he's not here with us, but he introduced me to him many, many years ago. So the turning point was the fact that I got the Fulbright grant and I moved to New York City, abandoning everything and leaving everything behind. So my first idea, I had no idea what is contemporary architecture. Yes, of course, like as contemporary architecture doesn't mean anything really, but so I started spending time in Avery Library every day, around 10 hours a day, to try to understand, and photographing at nights in New York City, where before I would photograph only antiquities in the middle of nowhere, so the shift was quite amazing. So the first amazing connection I had to contemporary architecture was with the work of Kengo Kuma, the glass house. So this house, this guy here, changed everything in my life, and I mean Kengo Kuma. So, and the fact it changed it is because I hate being at home. I cannot stand it. So I found suddenly a building where I would be in the landscape but being inside. So I said, well, that's a fantastic work. Who has made this? At that time, after New York, I moved to the Aegean. I was a head photographer for the American government. I was working. So I was stationed at Knossos when I decided to go find him. From that moment on, it changed everything in my career. It was a turning point. So I moved to Japan after New York, Crete, Aegean Sea. I moved to Japan, where I spent time photographing contemporary architects working with glass. The idea of anti-object, which I will develop later on, speak about it. So the question is, as a photographer, the responsibility we bring in order to capture architecture and what remains in history, because our material is not just consumed supposedly within like fast food stuff, you know. So what is our responsibility photographing architecture? Photography of a building as an object or as an environment? What is the photographer's role in the perception of architecture? So I take my role very seriously, and I have devoted myself to this for over 2 decades, photographing architectural works across the world. So in my case, architecture is an environment. During my initial stages, being a photographer of landscapes, of course, archaeology is always using references, how architecture can be photographed. It's like, what is the environment? Usually, guys, you know, it takes you years to build, to design, to get a job to begin with, and then you end up having someone coming in and saying, yeah, sure, half a day, done. So it's very unequal, the engagement, the intellectual connection, and also the ways with which we present architecture, actually removing the context and then showing an object where we don't know what is what. So in the house in New Canaan, the glass house, but also another experimental house in Australia by an Australian architect. So references, Barako Wright architects and Kengo Kuma on top, the black and white photograph. I have been influenced throughout my career from artists, musical pieces, as Arvo Part, as it is the movies of Tarkovsky, paintings, photographers, and so on. Especially a turning point for me was the work of Arnold Böcklin, and we have here someone from Switzerland who is very well aware of his work. So the same painting, the same scenario given in 5 different variations, of which the one has been at Metropolitan. So I would always go back and look at it, and at times going to Basel and look at it. So this specific painting and the variations of it has influenced my work greatly. Because it's like, how do I look at the same place, but giving different expressions of it? So it's this idea of working in the desert, sand, glass, coast, sea, mirror. It's all connected. As with the work of Dan Graham, the Hart Pavilion, spending the entire day there. And it's the question is, where am I showing the context? The connection of the content and the context, the connection, the linking, the bridging. So how can we reveal the intention of the architect? How can I invert the content-context hierarchy and uncover new relationships? I've crossed the world, being stationed in London, then in New York, then in Australia, and then connecting all this work together and creating a body of work that is narrative-based, mostly at the edges of the world and the edges in general. Photographing for periods of time in Scandinavian countries with under a certain research topic, or in South America or in Australia, and being influenced by also filmmakers like Tarkovsky. So my 2 books, the first, I've made many books, but I use this as an example because it was a turning point. Columbia University Press, In Extremis, the title which was given to me by my dear Dimitris Philippidis, that we have been always in contact, and during my research in Australia, thank you very much, that's a parenthesis again. So going from a book that didn't know exactly where it wants to be, even though awarded book, moved to my first narrative-based photography book, and my first with Kengo Kuma also, where I photographed for 2 years a house, visiting it for 22 times in different seasons. So the New Canaan house, transparency, nature, a visual lexicon, and the cinematographic approach. So the idea is how to move through a glass house and how to show the relationship in between the different phases of the seasons and relationships of inside, outside, materiality, reflection, refraction, transparency, distortion, texture, etc. And then the narrative-based photography, relational space, anti-object. That's why we are able to coordinate with Kengo so well, because of our idea together. Of course, he said it, and he wrote about it, and I'm photographing about it, and we worked together for 25 years almost. and different works of Ken Gokuma, with whom I'll be tomorrow in Portugal. So usually we are asking, like, what is behind the scene when we are photographing architecture? Is a hell of an organization. And some of you know this with me, but imagine if you have to photograph a central station in Tokyo, the arrangements that have to take place. Since I was a little girl, I was quite obsessed with what is the center of the world and what is the periphery and what is the connection of the center to the periphery. I made a book called Periphery, with which I won the Gold Prize, and its relationship between the man-made structures at the edges of the world, taking under consideration that the center, according to the ancient Greek belief, is in the center is Delos. So this is my last large-scale work, which is already, it's in its second year, and it's about the island of Delos, which you all know, but the birthplace of Apollo, the god of sunlight, and his sister Artemis, the goddess of moonlight. So I'm in the Aegean Sea, around Delos, looking for Delos and photographing in the island inside out. I've stayed there already 30 days and photographing around the clock, after midnight, during the night, with full moon, using artificial light in combination with moonlight, and examining this way the relationship of the center to the periphery of the world, which is my new body of work and exhibited at the moment as a second exhibition in Paris. So, and with more to come throughout the summer and with a new publication. Thank you all very, very much, and thank you.